Welcome to the Underground Temple. My name is Hayashi. I've been closing in now on my 57th year studying traditional Okinawan karate. And in this brief video, I would like to share with you what I consider to be some of the missing teachings of the Sanchin Kata. You are looking at a Ju, or soft variant of the Okinawan Sanchin Kata of the Ishinryu system. Western martial culture has little to no context for understanding this type of performance. There is no tension, except to place the limbs in their various positions. Every move is precise. The goal is to open up the body's internal channels to distribute a charge to the overall musculature for a dramatic increase in physical strength. There are some who believe that the tension typically seen in this kata's performance represents only the earliest developmental stage of practice, the notion being that one progresses from the go, the hard, to the go-ju, the hard soft, to the ju, the soft. Sanchin Kata is probably one of the most enigmatic fighting forms that has come out of Asia to the Western culture. One of the problems of our understanding the Sanchin Kata is that many of these high-end forms embedded internal principles into the overt structure of the kata. Western culture, as we adopted these fighting forms, had no context for what internal principles were or meant. Is I'm just going to take the opening move, the very first move of the Sanchin Kata as taught in the Ishinryu system, and I'm going to break it down for you to give you an idea just how extraordinary this kata is and how subtle some of the influences which have been lost that can greatly magnify your physical strength for all manner of technique. It doesn't matter if you're doing a slightly different variation or an extremely different variation. I think when you see my opening movements, it should stimulate your curiosity for just how you're doing your sequences. There are many ways to do them improperly, which do not lead to increased physical strength, but you wouldn't know that unless you were testing it. This leads me to another observation that the key testing when a person's performing Sanchin Kata, for example, without a jacket on, having different parts of their body struck, is probably missing the point. The essence of that testing should be to discover whether the ki or chi has moved into the proper musculature as a result of the physical postures, because different physical actions, limb configurations with the arms and the legs, direct chi through very specific currents to amass and bring a charge to specific musculature. That is what ki testing is all about, to determine if that charge is there. We're looking for an intersection of mental focus, proper breathing pattern, and physical moves. These movements, if they're off even by as much as, say, 2 inches, too high, too low, too close to the body, too far away, too wide, too narrow, can cancel the effects where you will actually become physically weaker. Outwardly, the Sanchin Kata is quite simple. There are no kicks. The long version has turns, but you're repeating the forward sequence several times. Inwardly is where the real teachings come. His kata is far more complex than you probably have been taught. Let me take you through a quick presentation of how just the opening movements should be done And I'm going to do this from the ground up. I'll start with a stance. Everybody's familiar with the Sanchin stance, but what you're not familiar with is, why is there a Sanchin stance? What is the purpose behind a toed in or hourglass posture where the feet are rotated in? So I'm going to tell you this. If you don't know anything about the internal side of martial technique, you won't understand why the Sanchin stance came about. Yes, it is a fundamentally strong and pliable stance, but the reason for the foot turning in has to do with the way energy moves through the body. Energy tends to come through the left leg and out the right leg. And this presented a problem for the kata's construction, because if energy is coming out my right leg, how do I stop it? Otherwise, I'm going to find myself with no increased extra strength. And the answer to that is you rotate your heel out so that your foot ends up no more than 45 degrees. It can be a little bit less. It could be up around 40, 45, but that would be the optimal position. So when you step forward into Sanchin stance, you need to rotate the leg on the ball of the foot. That is, you push the heel out. You do not bring the full ball of the foot in. And that remedied the problem of energy out on the right side by preventing the energy from coming out. But that's only part of the story, because there isn't just one Sanchin stance. There are multiple Sanchin stances, but they all follow the same basic formula, and that is the lead foot rotates on. If the shoulders fall to the outside edge of your foot, right, that means my feet are inside my shoulder width, then you must rotate both feet inwards. But if the lead foot were to be 1 foot width out, which makes the shoulders fall to the inside of your foot, only the lead foot must be rotated outwards. If you rotate the left foot, or in this case, the left foot inward, both of them inward, you're going to shut down energy flow. Back foot straight. Narrow stance, both feet turned in. Wider, slightly wider stance, only the lead foot turns in. You may hear sometimes, and you might even read about this in the literature, that one should grip the ground, as if you're trying to pull the floorboards up, right? Grip the ground. That's actually incorrect. What you need to do is make the greatest impression you can with the bottom of your foot onto the floor. And once you've pressed all the toes down, you want to pull the toes inward. So there is a sense of gripping, but you're not bending at the middle knuckles of your toes. I would tell you to try a strength exercise like holding your stance against someone's push by gripping your toes in that ladder fashion. You're not going to be able to do it. Now, why would we want to do something like that? Because on the bottoms of both feet, equivalent to my palms here, there is an acupoint called the bubbling springs. That bubbling springs point needs to be opened, and it's opened in 2 fashions. One is the manner I told you in which you place the toes flat down as much as you can and then pull them toward you. And second is you shift your weight slightly forward. Now you're activating the rise of energy coming up the legs into the lower dantian. The lower dantian is this entire area here encompassing your lower torso. This is where we're going to amass a charge in the body. So the Sanchin stance begins to draw charge through the legs up into the dantian. And it has to be a crescent step. You don't see people step in Sanchin by going out like this. You'll always see the rotation. And the reason for that rotation is you're activating 3 meridians that travel up the inside of your leg. Why 3 meridians that you want to activate? Because the more energy you can pull up, the bigger the charge you're going to have for any manner of technique, whether it's blocking, punching, kicking, locking, escaping from locks. Those 3 actions, by the way, are a crescent step accomplishes a forward motion, an outward motion, and in some cases, which I will say for another conversation, if the back foot is turned out prior to the step, a rotation. And that's those 3 actions activate or open up each of the 3 channels. If you could think of it like a straw, there's 3 straws in your leg. You want all 3 straws open, particularly down by the bubbling springs. You have a little cap there, you open that up and you draw that energy in. These subtleties are part of the hidden teachings. They're mostly lost. I don't see a lot of mainstream teachers presenting this degree of detail, but this detail is absolutely significant. Not only must you follow the detail, but you must follow the sequencing so that, like a straw drawing fluid through it, you want to time it as it goes through different stages so that you can move it around your body. Looking at it slightly from the angle right here, there's something else that's happening. I'm going to go into the Sanchin stance, and that is there's a rocking action. It's very, very subtle. Remember I said you can open up the bubbling springs point on the bottoms of both feet by moving your weight forward, not by rocking the torso forward. We don't want to step like this and then come back up again. But prior to the step, I'm back a little bit on my heels and then I come forward onto the balls of the feet. You could practice a gentle rocking to get a sense of the interaction of the toes needing to grip the ground further as you come forward. We want to facilitate that draw by rotating the knees slightly inward on an in-breath and then rotating them out on an out-breath. In-breath, they rotate inwards. Out-breath, they rotate outwards. They don't have to rotate a lot. You don't want to over-rotate. I don't need to go like this. I don't need to become a cowboy. But on the step, you will see an in-breath followed by the pushing of the knees outward with the exhale. Breathing is absolutely critical, not only in your regular forms, but in the Sanchin form. Air should come in through the nose and out through the mouth. And when it comes into your body, you want to bring it down into the lower dantian. One of the reasons for the belt knot is to get students to subliminally concentrate on the lower dantian. When you get promoted and you look down, you go, oh, look, I'm the next belt color. That is helping facilitate dropping your attention, your awareness down to the powerhouse of your body. From a biomechanical standpoint, the torso is the center of gravity that allows you to drive weight behind all of your strikes. And it's also the reservoir that draws ki and holds ki in this particular area to be distributed to the limbs. The internal Sanchin is to cultivate that ki, to open up the channel, get used to the channels being open so you can carry a greater charge in your musculature. At any point in these details, should you do them incorrectly, you're either going to stop the flow at the source or you're going to cut it off on the way up to the dantian or to the upper limbs. So in the very first move, let's just say I've already gone into the Sanchin. The hands are drawn just at the lower abdomen with the right palm on the bottom, the left palm on top. They're coming in on an in-breath. I want you to think of maybe the idea of gathering something. You're gathering ki, but you could also think of you're picking something up. If you do think of picking something up, do not bend forward to pick it up, but in fact sink down a little bit. And that's going to take place on the in-breath. So your hands are going to go in-breath, out-breath, in-breath. You see how my hands are? I'm not coming here. And I'm not going to have my hands in different positions. For example, I'm not going to have my palms down, nor am I going to have my thumbs up or hands sideways. The gathering is going to take place with the hands rotating palms up. And then the arms lift to this position. You could go crazy looking at different videos of Sanchin. You'll have people out here, up here, down here, out further, in closer. So what's going on there? Well, I can tell you that there's different formulas for generating power, but they do follow very specific guidelines. Probably the easiest for you to comprehend would be that there are 3 possible positions for you to bring your arms to. Now, the first thing is, how do you get there? You're obviously not going this way, but I'm going to tell you, you do not want to go that way. And that is one of the most common mistakes in the Sanchin, that the arms are going sideways. This will disperse the ki. The arms are rising forward on an angle. Yes, they are moving outwards, but they're moving just as much upwards and outwards as if you were going to strike 2 people under the jaw with your fist. You're not going to do that. That would be ridiculous, but that's the notion that you would have. What about all these different positions? I'm going to give you 3 basic formulas. Your Sanchin may fall into one of these, but it's going to be very precise. You cannot mix and match these formulas. If you have the narrow Sanchin hourglass stance, and you choose to put your hands up, you're going to have your palms facing each other. Narrow stance, palms facing each other, fairly tight, 90-degree angle in the arm. Never less than a 90 that jams the energy up. If you take the wider Sanchin stance, you're going to have your hands your arms 1 fist width wider and held in a 3/4 position. Notice my elbows also moved outward slightly because there is a correlation between the elbows and the knees. Your elbows must be over your knees. If you were to go a little bit wider, which kind of falls outside of the parameter of Sanchin, you would rotate your hands flat. That is, my palms are facing towards the back wall, or the back of my hands facing towards the front wall. So we have 3 postures, 1 for the narrow stance, 1 for a foot width wider, which means the arms open up a fist width wider, or slightly wider than that, and the hands go flat. So we could call this flat, vertical, and then the center one is 3/4. For us, the 3/4 is the ideal. It seems to move the greatest amount of energy down into the dantian, or from the dantian up into the leg. But that's not all about this hand position. If you choose 1, 2, or 3, the position of your thumb must change. Position number 1, your thumb is on your middle finger. Position number 2, the 3/4, your thumb is on your pointer finger. Position number 3, your thumb would be in the traditional Ishinru vertical punch position, which is thumb on top. Well, it's on top, not just to be on top. And it's not on top to strengthen the wrist, although it'll do that. It's on top to seal a particular point called the hegu between the thumb and the pointer. That point is sealed by bringing the thumb on top and over towards the big knuckle. I'm not going to put the thumb on that big knuckle down here. I'm just going to bend it, and that will seal one point, but it'll also cause an opening of the other point. So that means as my hand is coming upwards, my thumb is rotating between middle finger, pointer finger on top. Again, depending upon what your teachers are telling you is your endpoint position. Now, this motion where you're breathing in, you're opening the bubbling springs, you're rotating the knees in, you're breathing out, you're pushing the knees out, your weight is coming forward and you're lifting upwards. That is bringing a charge into the dantian. But to hold that charge, when you start to come forward and up, you have to move a muscle in your lower body called the anal sphincter, the muscle of the anus. A sphincter is any muscle that prevents fluid from leaking out. Your mouth is a sphincter also. And I probably should get into the pelvic action here. Your pelvis will tilt back slightly, and the anal sphincter will relax and open. You want it to open. You want to relax it. On the in-breath, you tilt back and relax. Why? Because chi moves best through relaxed muscle or stretched muscle, but not contracted muscle. So we want to relax, draw the ki up into the body, into the lower dantian, and then we want to tuck the pelvis forward, tighten the anal sphincter to cork that charge in the dantian so we can distribute it to the upper part of the arm and finally out to the fist. Does that make sense? Taking energy in, lifting it up, corking it, and moving it through. We're moving a big charge through the musculature. Why are we doing that? Because we want to open up the system. We want to change the gauge of the wiring that conducts ki. Is it the nerves? Maybe in part, but not entirely. Take the charge, distribute the charge, repeat the process. When the hands come up or on the way up, the tongue should always be lightly adhered to the roof of the mouth. Why should the tongue be adhered? Because we have an elliptical charge going around the body. Some people feel it goes in the opposite direction, but let's just say this is a typical energy field traveling around the front of the body. The tongue helps connect the currents that rise up the back and down the front. So that tongue stays on the roof of the mouth even when you're breathing in and out. As it's coming up, as you're breathing in, the neck is relaxed. But when you start to breathe out, you're going to lift your head and take that small curve out of the base of the neck and also take that small curve out of the base of the spine. How do you do that? By tucking forward. How do you get this curve out? By pushing the head back and up slightly. That would be not straight back, but more like an angle up this way. Someone once said it's like hanging a hat on a coat rack. Okay, you think of your head like a hat and you want to put it on a coat rack, that's not a bad analogy. So you've got a lot going on in that opening move of Sanchin. Through the feet, into the legs, into the dantian, cork the dantian, move it up to the arms the proper way, not to the sides. Prevent it from shooting out the top of your head and keep it rolling around. And you repeat that process through the kata over and over again. And over time, like a weightlifter going to the gym to try to increase the ability to lift heavier weights, you will increase your ability to hold a greater charge. But for example, if you were to step forward, but your anal sphincter is tight, you're not going to get any charge. And perhaps in another video, I will show you why this type of practice is so significant, because you will get an instant boost in physical strength. It will last momentarily, but for long-term practitioners, that charge will stay in your system longer and longer, and your health should also uptick to better and more vital. Okay, I've given you a lot of information, very compact in a short amount of time. If you have questions, if you have challenges for me, reach out to me. I will leave my email address. Look for that at the end of the video. If you like what you're hearing and you want to learn more, take a look at my most recent book, Kiko.